Shemai, just a quick message to say we have been nominated for 2 Golden Lobe Podcast Awards. We were meant to do this in the main feed, and we probably will still keep it in the episode, but in classic us style, we biffed it and made it quite confusing. But so I thought we'd just quickly jump on at the start and say we've been nominated for 2 categories in the Golden Lobes, and we'll be nominated along the likes of people like Tom Davis and Ramesh Ranganathan and Pierre Novelli and all these fucking actual amazing people. So it's quite a surreal moment. But we have a chance as well for a third category for like listener supported shit. So Jack's put a link in the audio description. So if you click on the, I'm so fucking tired. I don't know why I'm bothering. This is fucking pathetic. If you want, you can vote for us. We might get another little prize or nomination. And to do that, you just click the link in the description or something. Oh fucking hell! This is why we are the most biffy little fucking biffy Clyros out there. Where you'll biff everything we want to do. I was meant to say what the categories were as well, but I can't be bothered now. One of them is Best Tangent, and one of them is about like a cult status thing about having a niche audience. I can't even find the fucking description, so what's the fucking point? Well, thanks anyway. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate everybody's joined the Patreon. That's such a fucking nice thing of you to do. I'm a bit hungover today, and I'm not in the fucking mood. Anyway, it's the episode. It's a cracker. It's a really good one.
Hello, Mrs. Kensington.
Hello, Alston.
Why don't you ever model for me, Mrs. Kensington?
You know how Mr. Kensington feels about that.
Oh, behave. Yeah. Yeah, baby. Yeah. Ow!
Could I start? And welcome to Tales for Wales, the podcast that never forgets to come out your black and tans and fight me man to man. Show your wife how you won medals down in St. Falklands. I biffed the lines. Tell her how the IRA. I biffed it. I should have written this down. Let's go with that. We'll run that from the top. No, I'll just go over here. No, it's all falling apart.
Go to the second chorus, and then we'll pick it up.
All right. Tell her how the WRA made you run like hell away from the green and lovely lanes of Kidwelly.
Aye. Saucepan bar.
Bloody got a fucking tad, bitter bastards.
Very good. I wasn't expecting the old
Come out your black and tans, come on to fight. That's one of my favourite songs ever. It's such a fun, especially because I mostly know it from Partridge.
I was going to say that's the what made that famous for me.
Yeah. Come out your black and tans.
He starts off, he goes, I knew you when you were sweet 16.
Come out your black and tans.
He's doing the Daniel Craig lookalike next to him, and he goes, "Come on, Simon."
Just to kick this off, I'm having my very first sip of Impossible Brew. This and that, and I'm such a fucking sucker for stupid marketing and over the.
Is that the one that's got nootropics or some shit in it? Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is it's absolutely booze. But without
get
the
a buzz without the booze.
Yeah, it's that. It's like get high on your own supply, baby. But it's Japanese-inspired dry lager. Baby, you're talking Asahi.
Ooh, if it tastes like Asahi, I'm kind of getting...
Oh, shit, I've just seen the word honey-touched malt. That isn't what I want to be reading. No. I don't want to be reading.
Oh, honey-touched, hibiscus infused. Yeah. Good God.
I'm like, commit fucking Harry Carey if it's not fucking...
On brand, yeah.
Yeah. Ready, here we go.
Go on, have a sip. Tell us what you think.
It is a bit sweet.
Oh,
it is
a bit honeysuckled fucking stud.
I shouldn't have read the word honey tit because that has titted me right up.
Coloured your opinion.
Yeah, but it is crisp. I would say Japanese. So it says on the back, Japanese. Look at the can. The can looks. It's fucking £3 a can as well. So it's fucking. It's not like a good bargain, but it's the whole thing.
If those sweet lion's manes do the job,
yeah,
I'm gonna wager it's nowhere near as good as a real beer.
Well, of course not. No,
I mean,
it
come
never
on.
is. But this here says, brewed with Social Blend, a proprietary alcohol alternative formula is crafted with a blend of science-backed ingredients using patent-pending technology. Social Blend TM is designed to replicate the convivial experience of drinking. They have minus the headache.
Hate their marketing team, I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Convivial.
Convivial.
I'm sort of having a convivial bit of
It was such a convivial time, guys.
Guys, I'd like to have a
I like
convivial bit of booze.
using patent-pending technologies
that's
as
so
well.
funny.
Illegal. We're experimenting on fucking primates.
Yeah, it's like what we said
Drink
before.
it, drink it. You getting a buzz?
Do you remember when we were at uni, people who could buy like legal highs online, and they were
I was one of said people, my friend.
Yeah.
I had a bit of Druid's Fantasy at one point, which was apparently the equivalent of magic mushrooms. Off my fucking tits.
I would like to do actual mushrooms, though. They were like in a safe, controlled
Well,
environment.
the boys, they promised they wouldn't let me jump out a window or something, right? And then they got bored of my nonsense and they just locked me in my room and went to the pub. And like, you probably can't do much damage to himself there.
That's terrifying.
You know what they did though?
What,
They put on fucking.
Did it actually work? Were you off
I
your
was
tits?
high as a kite, mate. Yeah, I started out with the people.
Oh, as a kite. You're
I was a
such
kite,
a
mate.
person who's
Such-
never done drugs.
I know,
before.
yeah, mate.
Oh,
I
bloody
was-
yeah! I was talking to the wolves.
It was like I'd done a
it's
full-on
kite.
bit of hash, mate. Okay, but I was tripping balls. That's another
You were
thing. I
tripping
was
balls. I
tripping
hate
balls,
that.
bro. I was
Yeah.
affected. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
I remember it started out with there was people around me still before I'd obviously gone on the news too much.
Yeah.
And I remember being in one of the boys' rooms, like dorm rooms, and I was looking at his carpet, and I could just see like veins crawling, like growing on his floor. And in classic, oh god, he's so high fashion. I was like, oh mate, you need to sort your carpet out. You sort the carpet out. And he was like,
You'd be a
what are you
nightmare.
on about? There's another thing where I was watching like back in my room. I was watching just my blank wall, but I could see two knights sword fighting.
Could you really?
Yeah, and I even did this. I was doing the camera will be like this, but I was like that with my phone, and I was like trying to film it, and then they're just filming a wall.
Fucking hell, really?
But honestly, it's just like this was probably like kitted out. You know, like Night Fight we used to love.
Yeah.
It was like
'Cause
that.
you're-
It was
and
Night
also,
Fight before Night Fight was a thing.
If I told that story, I think some people would be like, "Oh yeah, you're just adding a little pep to this story," because you're such like a I don't know. I don't think you'd ever
A
add
non-druggy
any
dweeb.
Yeah.
Is that something along those lines.
But no. I think you wouldn't embellish the story at all. I don't think
no
I
need,
would
mate.
either, but
no need when the story's
but-
this juicy, you know.
But you know, like some people who don't do drugs, if they try to do drugs, they embellish, like, "Oh, I did a whole bag," and it's like, "Did you really?" That kind of vibe.
Oh,
I know you would only
two of
ever
these
say
little
what
like
actually happened.
capsules.
Yeah,
Andy took two as well, right? He was pretty unaffected though, but I hadn't slept the entire night before. I stayed. This is fucking not doing my virgin fucking reputation much any credence, but I stayed up all the night before playing Mass Effect 2 on Xbox 360.
that is so lame.
Such a good story. Any Mass Effect heads out there, they know full well that last bit of story you can't put the controller down. So I hadn't had any sleep. Took these bad boys, and I was like,
Ironically,
fucking,
playing a whole night of Mass Effect is probably worse for your health than getting on the
probably is
shrooms.
actually, yeah. But they, I did that happened, and then I was looking at my own eyes in the mirror, and the pupils were like fucking huge.
Well,
I was freaking out.
I'm scared of any psychedelic because just, you know, not being in control always stresses me out. But that's one thing. Before I die, when I'm I always think if me and Emma are like 60 and we go to somewhere, I think that'd be one thing I'd like to try.
Go off your fucking bonce on psychedelics.
Yeah, and like, do you know what I mean? I think that's one thing because it's a completely natural thing. So it's something that's within the earth. It's like, I think that, you know, it's not like you're taking Mandy or something, or like something that's kind of
not like a dirty chemical brewed in someone's fucking
which
kitchen,
I've done
is it?
plenty
Yeah, which I've done loads of. So,
yeah, they're great. But,
it's really got big shoes to fill.
But now I'd like to try something El Natural.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they left me. Yeah, they left me in the room and they put on fucking Big Trouble in Little China. Clunes did that. Our friend
insane.
Matt. I think that was probably like a joke on his part.
joke,
but man,
yeah.
that was tripping me out like you would not believe because that's a fucking trippy film anyway.
Yeah, that's horrible. It's like
and I
people
was-
used to like jump in your face and flash
got
their
like
hands out.
for anyone who's not no au fait with Big Trouble in Little China, it's like Kurt Russell in like a magical Chinese setting.
yeah,
I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, there's Big Trouble. In
It's Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the film. Yeah,
couldn't take my eyes off it. It was mad.
Yeah.
My head felt really heavy though, which would just
I'd love it
got
if
a big
actually you
head.
weren't watching that and you were just watching like some Jackie Chan thing.
Nice one, boys. Chugging on Big Trouble in Little China.
You're
Blank
watching like
screen.
Rush Hour instead, and just getting all the characters wrong.
I kept thinking my head was going to fall off because my head felt so heavy.
Yeah,
I
well,
felt
that
like
is
my
a
neck
big
was going to
head.
snap. It is a big head anyway. I felt my neck was going to snap, so I had to like lay down and watch it.
Oh,
and I was
that's
like,
so
my head needs
stressful.
support. I was
How long did that last
texting
for?
my our old housemate Debbie. I was like, Debbie, my head's going to fall off. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. She was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, I don't know this. After all these years, we
I think it was
still
only a
find
few hours
stories.
maybe, but it felt like a long time.
Yeah, were you
Remember
boozing
that.
with it as well?
I think I had a couple before I took them, and then I thought it was
Yeah,
best
you don't
not
really want
to
to
have any.
booze. Yeah, it's best not to. You don't want to dilute. Yeah. I'm off to Merthyr Town this weekend for a mega sesh.
Oh, up to Merthyr, why?
Yeah, my cousin and Coxie and Fletch, two of the boys, and my other mate are going to go watch Merthyr Town play football.
You love a little grassroots football.
I love grassroots football. It's it's like and Merthyr has like a great stadium and an amazing. It's like a community-owned football team, and like Johnny Owens, like the cool director, like he's done an amazing thing there. He's kind of put enough money into it, but it's like they're doing well. They have like this mad cob, like half of like an old school like bread. But like a like a big, like you see him like in a bakery, like a proper round bread.
like
You
a
imagine
big
they'd give
size
like
of your head
Robin
type
Hood
thing,
would
yeah.
give to like some peasants.
Yeah.
They hollow
God bless
that
you,
out.
Fanny. God
Yeah,
bless
God
Robin
bless
Hood.
Robin Hood. They put beans, chips, and sausages in it.
Oh, spiky
And,
bean burger.
Yeah, spicy bean burgers and chips.
I was about to say, that's okay, we're quoting that from a TV show,
Something.
but actually imitating
Quoting a
someone with a
person.
disability, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Oh well, you made it sad now. It's that Prada Willy syndrome documentary, which if people don't know, it's
Name,
people who can't.
name. If you discover a serious illness, name it
don't call it
something
Proud
less
of
funny
Willy.
than Proud of Willy syndrome.
Yeah. But it's about people who can't stop eating, and people used to say that was me when I was always eating beef, sausages, and chips.
So you've copped some, abuse from that.
Yeah, so I'm
you
allowed to do
You're
that.
allowed to make fun of it, yeah.
Yeah. We haven't done we're not making it doing the Patreon shout out, so should we do a little Patreon shout out just to kick us off?
Shouldn't we? Let's have a look.
So I just sprung that on you. I haven't got the spready up.
I haven't got the spread. Let me have a look.
Should I plug the Patreon for people? Because by the time this comes out, you should be hearing our Tuesday episodes where we do little snippets of the Patreons to get people involved. But we've got a video coming out in 2 weeks' time that we've made of a quiz that me and Jack had done, and we electrocute our little brains out. We got a boozy history tour coming up where we get booze from the as much booze as we can find from history, or booze that they would have made in history. So things like mead. What's that other one called? Like Brigget.
Oh, Braggot.
Braggot. Old whiskey, and then we're gonna taste and review them. We're also so we're doing lots of filming stuff on there. You also get 2 bonus episodes per month. You also get video episodes. You get the whole shebang. You know what it is. But yeah. And also, the big thing, don't sign up via Apple because they're fucking, you know what Tim Cook's like. He's always on the take. So
They'll
they
fucking
take
bleed you dry.
25%.
They will. Don't do that.
Yeah, they take 25%, but we don't see any of it and you have to pay more. So head to patreon.com, Tales for Wales, I imagine.
That's the
Something like that.
one. That's the one.
Yeah. So yeah, don't sign up via Patreon. You can sign up. Don't sign up via Apple.
Yes,
I think
do
if you
sign up by Patreon.
Yeah, and if you sign up via Android, you don't get charged. I reckon it's some kind of communist Chinese thing, so you're okay on there.
Yeah,
I
you'll
reckon.
lose your identity to the Chinese communists, but you'll save a couple of bucks, so it's all worth it in the end.
Yeah. Yes. I gotta say, this is really nice. This pint.
Is it going down? Can you
Really
taste
good.
those fucking lion's manes, mate?
Well, I
That's the
also got it
question.
like crispy cold as well, which always does help. So who are we giving a shout out to?
Shout
I
out
know we've
this
been a bit bad.
week is for a young member of the Patreon named Stephen Vaughan.
Oh, the Vince Vaughn factor.
The SVV, the Stephen Vaughan
SVV.
factor.
No, the SVF.
SVF, sorry.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
We got the-
Just spelling
we
3
got-
letters, can't do it.
The old Steve Vaughan factor, the SVF himself. Well, I'm so glad we've got the SCF on board. That's pretty.
Just anything adjacent to Vince Vaughn, I'm happy to talk about, because anything with him in is just it glows up anything. We watched I watched the end of it was the start of Wedding Crashers the other day. Just popped up on the telly.
He's great,
so good. He was like, I'm a cocksman.
He was like a Republican before you could be a Republican. You know, like most celebrities are left, are Democrats.
Is it what you would class as what used to be an okay Republican? Yeah, someone who just had a differing sense of political views.
He was just like a different Democrat. But now, if you say you're a Republican,
I hope he's not still one of them. I'd be bitterly disappointed if our precious Vince.
Steve, can you ask?
Yeah, Steve, chat with him. As I'm assuming you're brothers, you must be.
Yeah. Also, what a mad surname when you look at Vaughn written down. For someone as dyslexic as me, it's Vaughan. It's like someone's just coughed a little bit.
Where's that from, you reckon? Vaughn.
Dutch, French, German.
It's from the continent, I know that. And we said goodbye to the continent back in 2016, right?
Yeah. All right, so Vaughn, pick a team, right?
Pick a team, mate.
SVF, pick whose side you're on. All right, we'll do the other shout-outs at another date, I reckon. We're doing a Patreon after this, actually, as well, aren't we?
We are indeed.
That'll be a bit of a laugh.
Doing double bubble.
Double bubble. Right, should we crack on with tonight's episode? We have been chin-wagging.
Let's do it. And it's quite a longie as well, so...
We're talking of separating from the EU with Brexit. Today's episode is about another bunch of lads who want to separate even more from the EU.
Who are quite keen on separation themselves. So, yes, this topic was suggested by a good friend of the pod, old Sean Graham, a.k.a. Grey Dog, a.k.a. Sheen Graham.
Sheen Graham.
Sheen Graham, yeah. So cheers for that, mate. And if any other listeners have any suggestions, please do give us an email. We're at talesforwales@gmail.com, and that's the number 4, not the word.
Or Insta.
Or go through the sort of less boomer channels if you prefer. Yeah. That's also an option. So today I'm going to be starting by chewing your ears off about a guy from Wales, but also from history, a kind of homage to history of this land, one of our Tales for Wales, you might say. We haven't discussed something that I was just going to reference. We're up for awards.
Oh, shit, yeah.
We're up for 2 awards. The Golden Lobes. How did we miss that?
Oh, do you know what? I think there's something we can put at the start of the episode that will announce that. There's like the Golden Lobes, which are a really cool award, like a really big award ceremony. People they have like the biggest UK podcasts, like they have Wolf and Owl, the one with Tom Davis and Ramesh Ranganathan. They have Kerry Godliman podcast. So, like, we've been nominated for an award for Best Tangent and Shower Not a Grower, like a smaller community-based one.
Yeah.
And the Best Tangent one, and we're in the same category as Wolf,
which is a
and
bit
Owl,
crazy to think, but also fully deserved, if I don't say so myself. So
yeah, and
we absolutely deserve it.
Yeah, I biffed explaining what it was, but I think by the time you hear this, you should have heard at the start something saying that we've
if we've got a little announcement, you probably have already heard it. But there's also a user voted. Yeah. What's the word? User voted? No, crowd voted, public voted, listener voted. Yeah. That's what I'm after.
User,
you're a user. God, I'm user.
Yeah, can't believe we forgot to mention
what was what do we were yelling the other episode?
Groper
voted. It's absolutely Groper voted. I'll leave a link in this Epi's bio. And if you do fancy voting for the listener voted one, you can chuck us in on there as well.
Yeah, sweet. All right, so maybe there'll be something at the start that explains a bit better than this.
We'll tighten this up next episode.
Yeah, so
completely forgot. Probably the biggest thing in our podcasting careers. We like glaze over it. Just didn't even talk about it.
So if you want to see, I put it on our Insta, I think. But
yes, you did.
They're called the Golden Lobes, and they're quite pretty. Yeah, they're, like I mentioned, they are a big podcasting deal for dorks like us who like podcasting. But the people who go are really like actual celebs, which is fucking nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're really hard to find online because they're called the Golden Lobes.
I was just about to say, use the link in the bio or Google it, but don't Google Golden Lobes because Google will just put its little fucking patronising head on and go like, "Do you mean Golden Globes?"
They've had to they've been going for like a good couple of years now, and they get like David Baddiel and his mate, what's David Baddiel's friend? Frank Skinner, and like they have like people proper like celebs,
big time boys.
Their PR is like so fucked because it's called the Golden Lobes. Everyone thinks it's the Golden Globe.
If you want to find it, Google Cheerful Earful instead. That's like the company that kind of runs it.
Yeah.
You'll find it way quicker doing that because it took fucking ages for us to find like the info for it. So yeah, do that. If you fancy it, you can vote for us in the Groper voted category. Anyway, sorry, back to the episode.
Of course, we biffed that.
We totally biffed it. So yeah, well, that's why the gang love us, mate. That's why we're up to 2 awards, and that's why we're up for 2 Lobies. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about a guy from Wales. Then I'll move on to start talking about the Byddin Rhyddid Cymru, or the Free Wales Army. But as I said, first I'm going to talk about the man behind the movement. So this man was William Edward Julian Caio Evans, or Julian Caio, as he's often shortened to. And he was born on April 22nd, 1937 at Plas Glendennis in Cilium, near Lampeter, which is kind of like southwest Wales, not quite as far as Pembroke. Julian's father... Oh, go on.
When I used to catch the bus to Aber, when you get to Lampeter, you're about an hour away. Yeah,
we used to have a friend in uni from Lampeter, didn't we?
Yeah. We used to have a friend.
Peace be with you, child. Yeah. Julian's father was a professor of maths at St David's College in Lampeter, and he also served as High Sheriff of Cardiganshire during the Second World War. I don't know about you, but
it's high noon, brother.
It's high noon.
I don't know why I said brother.
Draw, sir.
I did my Hulk Hogan, brother. It's high noon, brother.
You better be quick off the draw, brother. But I don't know about you. I can't hear sheriff without just thinking of Alan Rickman in Prince of Thieves.
Yeah.
At least I didn't use a spoon. Yeah. Great minds think alike.
I'm having a wonderful time.
I'm having a great time. I'm having a great time. So, Julian, I'm going to refer to him as if he's my friend Julian, by the way. I know in all like the research, they call him Caio, like his second name, Caio Evans. I've gone Julian.
Jules.
My mate Julian.
Jules Holland.
So, don't talk about him. He's in hot war, isn't he?
Is he?
Is he? I don't know. Who's the one I'm thinking of? Oh, no. I know I'm getting confused.
I was going to say the hootenanny can't be gone.
I saw the other day saying Jules Holland is the most boring presenter. And I thought, he's in hot water. You better watch his back.
They did that amazing SNL sketch on the last week's episode where they had him being like some poltergeist going, ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Jules Holland. and he's like chasing people around with a piano. And you go,
I'm getting confused with, is it Scott Mills?
Yeah, the Mills.
He is in hot water, right?
What's mad
about Jules.
It's so nuts that the BBC can never seem to get the public opinion right.
Can't get it right.
Because everyone was like, well, it wasn't against the law, and I think the police said no. And I see things online saying, well, what's he done wrong? And then the BBC, because they've had so many paedophiles they've defended forever.
Such a knee-jerk reaction, though. Get out!
To be fair, I've not read anything about it, so I have no idea.
I know what you mean, though. They always fucking biff it on the PR response.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Jules / that other guy I just mentioned aside. Holland, yeah. Jules / Holland. No, Jules / that other guy. Was Scott Mills.
Scott Mills.
Anyway, so Julian attended Millfield School in Somerset, an English school where he was supposedly exposed to strong nationalist influences through the teachers there, many of whom had served in the war. Julian was rather privileged for a Welsh boy.
That was fucking mental. You just put your hand in your mouth and went...
I was trying to block my burp down the thing, but you've shone a light on my misdeeds.
You put your fingers in your gob and
I was from that angle, I'm doing that to block it. I could have done this thought.
Don't think about it.
Yeah, trying to bite my own fingers off. Don't do it. Anyway, right, where was I? So, yeah, he was exposed to these nationalist influences there, apparently, from a lot of teachers who were in the war. And, we said a few, in the last couple of episodes when we talk about school stories, all these teachers that shouldn't have been teachers because they were, high stress. Imagine that ship. You've just come back from World War II. Or teach some kids? Yeah, wheel them in.
Yeah, they're the least appropriate people. Do your maths or fucking gas you.
I'll fucking shank you with this knife I kept from the wall. So Julian was rather privileged for a Welsh boy at the time. But despite this, he started developing an attitude of anti-establishment more like the working class Welsh that made up most of Cymru's population. In 1955, Julian was conscripted for national service, serving with the South Wales Borderers, where he saw active duty during the Malayan emergency, fighting against guerrilla warfare in the jungles of the country. For those like me who had never
in
heard...
Malaysia?
Malayan, I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Well, so as in like in Asia?
Yeah, I think it was in Asia.
What the hell are we doing
I was
over
about to
there?
say,
No one from Welsh.
What the hell are we even doing there? For those of me, like me, who didn't know what the Malayan emergency was, the Malayan emergency.
Oh, you don't know what that is?
Don't know what it is. It was also known as the Anti-British National Liberation War, and it was fought in Malaya or Malaya. Not sure how to say it. Like I say Malaya, between pro-independence fighters, and the military forces loyal to the Commonwealth. So it's an absolutely classic dulling down of the name there as well, where it's not downtrodden indigenous people fighting for a better life from the invading rulers. It's called the Malaya Emergency.
Yeah, it's an emergency.
Julian's experiences in that bit of war left him with military training and a soldier's mindset. In the 50s then, after finishing his service, he attended the Royal Agriculture College in Cirencester before returning home to Ceredigion. There, he set up a stud farm at Glandennis. Should have invited us, am I right? That was a probably good crack of it.
It took me a second. I was like, why the fuck do you want to go to a farm?
Stud farm. Get you.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, sorry, just wetting the whistle.
Yeah.
There, he bred Palomino and Appaloosa horses, which are gold and spotted horses, respectively. Probably more to them to that. But this isn't
we don't
really
care.
Tales for Horses.
No, come on. It's horses for courses, Tales for Wales. Never the two shall meet.
Never the twain shall meet. The first organisation resembling the Free Wales Army appeared in 1959 as the Welsh Freedom Army. Confusing, I know. Free Wales Army is what the episode is about, but the original incarnation of it was called the Welsh Freedom Army. Or WFA.
It's not that confusing.
It was for me. Trust me, typing this out was fucking difficult. So this WFA, Welsh Freedom Army, they initially distributed cards in Llangollen with the slogan "Resist English Rule in Wales -WFA." Cards were later distributed nationwide and placed under beer mats, in telephone kiosks, libraries, bookshops, and anywhere else the group could think of. In 1952, a poet named Harry Webb designed the White Eagle of Snowdonia, often referred to by its Welsh name as Yr Eryr Wen, literally meaning
There's a
white
couple
eagle.
of them sprayed around where I live now.
I see them more and more, funnily enough, actually. I'll talk a bit more about that later. But so the Eryr Wen...
You burp so much. It's nuts.
I'm drinking a lot. I'm swigging. Talking, just drying my mouth out. I've got
You're
to
like
swig my
like
drink
a kettle.
and wet it.
You go...
You got to put me off the boil, baby. Anyway, so at Eryr Wen, right? I was gonna fucking swig them. I'm not.
Sorry, I'm
That's what
interrupting
you
way
made me
too
do.
much. I am.
No,
sorry.
it's this good,
Carry
man.
on.
This is the fucking classic pitter patter from Tales for Wales. So the Eryr Wen is apparently from Welsh legend, but I couldn't actually find anything to link it to a specific story. And I know my Welsh mythology quite well. And I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head either.
Well, I've seen that guy. He says it's to warn of the Saxons coming, and it attacks them. I saw like an Instagram video of one of the guys from the Midiad or from the movement, where he's like sat on a hill and he's explaining why they picked the white
really?
eagle, and apparently the white eagle was like something to do with Arthur, and it would be a lookout and warn him when the Saxons were coming, and then
Right, maybe because what I found, the only thing I could find that was like seemed to be corroborated was the White Eagle is linked very heavily to Eryri or Snowdonia.
Yeah, well, it is the White Eagle of Snowdonia.
Yeah, because
That
they
is
used to be
already.
in Wales. They did actually used to have white-tailed eagles,
Yeah.
and they were particularly prevalent around Eryri up until like the 1800s when they died out. So that's what I found about it. But I didn't know what the Arthur
Sorry.
thing,
Well, that's
it
what he
could
said.
be-
He
could
said
be a
because
double thing.
he said this is because this video of the guy explaining it. He's dressed in his army fatigues with the symbol, and he says, "Yeah, this is the White Eagle of Eryri," and it was it's a symbol. So yeah, like I just said, the thing I just said for that again.
So a little bit of double meaning there. I like it. So the Welsh Freedom Army grew in popularity and later morphed into the Free Wales Army. And the symbol would later become the emblem displayed on their material, flags, uniforms. They also graffiti it on walls, bridges, wherever really. There's loads of them across Wales. I saw one, I was walking to an office in Llandarcy the other day, and I went under a little bypass, and there was a big one there on like one of the pillars and everything. So you can see them they're fairly popular. Yeah. I'm not going to try and describe it because I'll just biff it, but it's kind of a basic shape version of an Erewhon or a white eagle.
It's scarily a little bit close. You could feel like maybe a swastika.
It's far too close to a swastika thing, I think. Yeah, it's a shame for that. Really, I was thinking of putting it as the album art for the episode, but I think I won't do that.
Yeah, imagine you saw a swastika and you just went, "No, that's a shame. That's a real shame."
Imagine at the first like Free Wales Army thing, like unveiling it, they pull the curtain, and go, "That's a shame, isn't it?" It's awfully close to a swastika. Only a couple of extra sprigs on it.
I know you need one extra. You need a tiny few adjustments, and you got yourself a
You're not far.
And also, eagles are quite right wing anyway.
Yeah, that's another shame. It's like they've been co-opted in some nasty regimes over the years. Yeah. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. What's done is done. We can't blame the boys now, can we? So anyway, the group also started using the slogan "Vigodwn ni eto," which means "We will rise again" in Welsh.
Yeah. So
as the group grew through 1964, a few other groups formed, claiming to represent the Free Wales Army. Julian crafted his own uniform using his old British Army clobber. He dyed it green in a cauldron, supposedly. Similarly, a guy named Tony Lewis, he dyed his Royal Air Force uniform green and formed a group claiming to be the Free Wales Army in Cwmbran. Another man, Gethin ap Griffith, became active, and he formed a group called the Anti-Sais Front, which is anti-English front, basically, with a bit of what it's not all Welsh. That Sais bit just means Saeson, which is English in Welsh. Gethin joined up with Tony Lewis in Cwmbran, and they merged their groups to become the National Patriotic Front. And I know what you're thinking; that sounds very white nationalist, but it was nationalist for Wales at this point. They're actually a common misconception because all the nationalist talk and like patriot talk has been so co-opted these days. It's like dirty words to do with like really right wing extremists. These guys were quite left wing actually.
We mentioned the same, like Scottish nationalism, Welsh nationalism, and Irish nationalism are normally left wing organisations. And in England, the BNP, for example, the British Nationalist Party, is very right wing.
So don't let the sort of stained words of today confuse you. They were.
Well, I don't think
they weren't. I'm not saying they were the best blokes in the world, but they. It wasn't like we want all the immigrants out or anything like that. They just wanted Wales to be a free country, essentially.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at the same time this was all going on, a guy named Dennis Coslet, who would later become Julian's second in command, he formed another group called the Welsh Republican Army in Llangennych in 1965. Coslet met with Julian and folded his forces in with the Free Wales Army. So then in 1965, an event would act as a turning point for our boy Julian. His followers and many other Welshmen and women who had had enough of how they and their people were treated by the central government in Westminster. This was, of course, the drowning of Capel Celyn in the Tryweryn Valley. The drowning of the village was to create Llyn Celyn, a reservoir intended to be used as drinking water for Liverpool. Despite massive opposition in Wales, Capel Celyn, a close-knit Welsh-speaking village, was drowned, and some sources, including Lord Elistan Morgan, who was an MP around that time, even said that Liverpool didn't even use the extra water for themselves, but sold it to industry abroad for profit. If you've ever seen the Cofiwch Tryweryn or Remember Tryweryn signs dotted around Wales, that's what it's referring to. We did a whole episode on the event. If you want to get your blood boiling, go check that out. It's a pretty good episode, and it goes into all the nitty-gritty of why Wales is still fucked off about it to this day. In any case, this injustice pushed Julian even further down the nationalist rabbit hole, to the point he was now flirting with the idea of direct action after having the reality of Wales's ineffectual political power shown so barely to him. It was in 1965, at a protest against the drowning of Capel Celyn, that the Free Wales Army made their first major public appearance. After the drowning had been done, the Liverpool Corporation decided to mark the occasion with an official opening ceremony on the 21st of October that year, which prompted a wave of protest from hundreds of Welsh nationalists. Now, I know maybe PR wasn't as sophisticated as it is now back then, but what a fucking stupid move to do. Like, let's do a big opening ceremony for this thing that is right in there as well, where right on the like in front of the.
And for context, the IRA were fully. It's a kind of a copycat of the IRA, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially that. Yeah,
and the IRA was at its height of was just about to enter the bombings in the 70s and stuff. But there was
very stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the lead up to the event, Plaid Cymru, for those who don't know, is a Welsh nationalist political party, encouraged its supporters to attend in protest, but they urged restraint. Gethin ap Griffith, who I mentioned earlier, he released an open letter calling for action and issued a statement to the Western Mail declaring the group's intentions to burn the Union flag at the event, claiming it would be because of the lack of Welsh representation on the flag, something we still don't have to this day, actually. Julian made similar statements in the press not long after, and even stated that he and his followers would prevent any members of Liverpool Corporation from reaching the dam by blocking access roads. Then, on the day of the ceremony, Julian and two of his associates arrived in the nearby town of Bala, and then while they were walking, the three of them encountered Tony Lewis, who I mentioned earlier, and his uniformed nationalist group, the National Patriotic Front, who had also travelled up from South Wales. The two groups joined together and travelled to Llyn to protest. Around 500 people had gathered at the main access road to the dam, and they harassed incoming Liverpool Corporation dignitaries by blocking the road, vandalising their vehicles, and even trying to tip them over. As more Liverpool Corporation's personnel came in by bus, the Free Wales Army whipped up the mob that had gathered there and escalated the crowd into a riot. Despite the Plaid Cymru leader Gwynfor Evans urging restraint, the crowd charged down towards the ceremony's grandstand and started a violent scuffle with the police that had been deployed there. Liverpool Corporation tried to carry on with the event, but no one could actually hear any of the speakers over the shouting of the crowd. Free Wales Army members burnt the Union flag as they said they would, and they were hurling rocks and shooting fireworks at the main platform in the event. The Lord Mayor of Liverpool, a guy named David Cowley, he tried to reason with the Welsh crowd from the speaking platform. But
Let me reason with you, please.
Come on, guys. Just be reasonable here.
We just want to drown your village.
This is so funny. The Free Wales Army, they cut the power lines to the event sound system. So the guy was probably going, please, come on, guys. And just nothing.
Fucking hell, lads. Just want to have a drink of water.
Come on here now, lads.
Hey, mate. Just want to have a fucking drink.
Just fucking calm down, mate. I can't get into my Liverpool accent without saying fucking. I have to,
fucking hell, mate. She knows you fucking just want to fucking
sorry,
drink of water.
Fucking around your village. You're like, fucking hell.
Don't want to fucking cut with me, mate.
But the Welsh protesters, they then started belting out My Hen Wlad Fy Nhadau, Wales' national anthem for anyone that doesn't know, until the mayor of Liverpool drowned out their singing by opening the floodgates. So I think they had I'm not sure if they're still there, but they had opening and closing to maintain levels of the reservoir. Yeah. Anyway, they opened those gates, drowned out the singing. The event was forced to finish, and the protesters eventually dispersed with the help of local police.
But what did the Liverpool people think? How it was going to go?
Yeah.
Hey, remember that thing where we drowned your village? We're going to have a great big party to celebrate.
Yeah, we're going to have a fucking drink and a fucking a little buffet around it. Fucking stupid. Following the protest, Julian and Tony Lewis's forces joined under the Free Wales Army banner, and they became the focus of attention for journalists. There was talk of prosecution for sporting the Eryr Wen insignia shortly after the riot, but local police were worried it would stoke the fire too much, and so they basically let it go. There was basically talks about saying it was kind of sporting political insignia within sight to riot or public disturbance, but they decided to let it go because they thought arresting people would only make it worse. After the disruption at Llyn opening ceremony, Julian publicly claimed that the Free Wales Army had established links with the Irish Republic Army, aka the IRA. The claims were reported in outlets like the Daily Mail and Western Mail at the time, and rumours were going around that the FWA had received weapons from the IRA, but historians would later refute these rumours, claiming the two groups were definitely in touch, but that no arms transfer had happened. In April 1966, the FWA accepted an invitation from Sinn Féin to take part in unofficial commemorations of the Easter Rising in Dublin. The Free Wales Army turned up in uniform and staged a visible paramilitary-style march.
That's quite cool.
It is quite cool. If you look at pictures of that, it does look kind of cool. It's a bit Nazi-ish, but it's kind of looks cool. This put them at odds with the more chilled out groups like Cymdeithas y Iaith Gymraeg or the Welsh Language Society. Yeah. I don't know why in my research that this kept popping up as the comparison, that they were at odds with chilled groups like Cymdeithas y Iaith Gymraeg. Well, for me, those guys are in schools, like making school
No,
books
I
and
don't
stuff.
think they were. They were the ones who went on like hunger strike and protest, and Cymdeithas Iaith Cymraeg were like proper hardcore, but not completely non-violent.
I think it's
So, like,
because in school, I imagine they would be like, I don't know. In my head, it was like they're the guys who write like Welsh books or something.
Well, now they're the ones now who like pull you up if you don't have a bilingual sign at a bus stop and stuff. But it was like that's the thing. Like Gwynfor Evans, people from Plaid Cymru went on hunger strikes for, and
that's right.
In like Aberystwyth, they had those big political sit-ins and protests and stuff.
And they did loads for the Welsh language as well.
Yeah, but they were very non-violent. So
yeah, exactly, like pacifist in the ways. Yeah. So they were butting heads with these kinds of guys. This led to some tensions in Wales, allegedly resulting in a confrontation between Julian and Dafydd Iwan, Dafydd Iwan, big boy Dafydd Iwan. So, I mean, I can get on board with some of the stuff this Julian was up for, right?
Yeah, he's a bit nuts.
But, like, if you're going head to head with Dafydd Iwan, come on. Dafydd Iwan's the boy.
Yeah.
He is
the thing. He's the definition of, like, peaceful resistance.
Exactly. So if you're going against Dafydd Iwan, mate, you probably need to reassess yourself. Have a little look at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, during the visit, Julian and his number one lad, Dennis Cosler, were introduced to members of the IRA and even participated.
Imagine the piss up they had.
Oh my God, they must have got so howling. Yeah, I can only imagine. Excuse me. And even they both even participated in a symbolic stone throwing attack on the British embassy. That just sounds so pathetic, doesn't it?
Them drunk with a can in their hand.
The journey back to Wales also became notorious.
Are you a bit worried that we're slagging these people off a little bit? We might have a car bomb.
No. These are the old school guys. It's fine. It just sound funny, like that. And we threw a bloody stone at the embassy.
But I can imagine them they're coming home from the pub drunk, and that's what they say they did.
Oh, I can totally imagine if we were out on the piss with them, going, "Yeah, let's fucking throw a fucking brick. Let's do it." But the journey back to Wales became notorious as well when when FWA members they removed the Union Jack from the ferry to Fishguard and replaced it with a Welsh flag, and then one member hijacked the ship's loudspeaker and declared that the vessel had been seized and was being taken to Wladfa, which is the Welsh colony in Patagonia. I thought that was quite fancy.
That's good gear. That's funny. Yeah.
Later then, in 1967, the FWA attempted their only recorded direct military action when they planned to bomb a water pipeline carrying water from the Elan Valley Reservoir to Birmingham. Yeah, another example of an English city that got Welsh water at the time. The Free Wales Army got the explosives from the Mudiad Amddiffyn Cymru, commonly known as MAC, which is the Movement for the Defence of Wales in English.
Yeah,
we'll probably do another whole episode on them on MAC because they're another fascinating sort of Welsh nationalist group, and they were active around the same time as well. Anyway, they got the bomb materials from this guy called John Bernard Jenkins, who was MAC's leader. He was also a bomb maker. And the Free Wales Army unit led by Dennis Coslet, the second in command I mentioned, they planted a bomb along a bit of pipeline at Cefn Penarth near Llandrindod, Wales. The bomb was timed to explode at 3 a.m. on St. David's Day to ensure maximum publicity. The bomb was made up of 40 sticks of gelignite packed inside an inflated car in a tube, which they loaded into the pipeline. Gelignite is the stuff that Alfred Noble accidentally discovered, stuff that's in TNT, basically. Coslet contacted
Dynamite.
TNT. I'm dynamite. Coslet contacted the Western Mail the following morning to announce the attack, but apparently he was known for calling in lots of hoaxes.
Oh yeah.
Over the years, so the paper didn't believe him. And then they thought they had Coslet pegged as a Billy bullshitter even more then when the bomb didn't go off the next day because it had a dodgy primer apparently. So the bomb just nothing happened. The bomb was actually found though 4 days later by a local sheep farmer, and the British Army had to be called in to dismantle and destroy it safely. The leader of MAC then cut off all ties with the Free Wales Army because he said they were too incompetent to work with. This was the only confirmed attempt by the FWA to take direct action, but there was evidence that the group was stealing explosives from collieries up and down Wales and training themselves in bomb making. I think it's quite funny that we use the mines as ways to train our guys to
it is nuts how this could have been turned out very differently.
Oh God, imagine if that had gone off, that would been like a renowned thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but and then it would also then inspire more, get more, And Wales could have had like the Troubles was absolutely devastating in Ireland. Imagine that's what our parents would have had to go through.
Yeah,
'Cause,
exactly. Imagine like the domino effect that could have had through
Yeah.
history. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So there was also another bombing, the bombing of Clywedog Reservoir that Mac carried out in 1966. That got the FWA investigated after the police found a petrol cap with the Ered Wen on it. But this was deemed a bit of trickery by Mac to confuse the police and just set them on the wrong sort of leads. We will talk more about that in an episode we do on Mac, I reckon, because that's quite interesting.
Nice. Yeah.
In September 1967, then, the Free Wales Army advocated for the families of victims of the Aberfan disaster, which happened in October the previous year. Anyone that doesn't know about that, that was when a colliery tip collapsed after heavy rain, killed 144 people, most of them children, because the tip was put very close to a school and was overpiled. I don't know what the actual word is, but basically too much was on there. They knew they shouldn't have done it, and it cost the lives of fucking loads of
another
kids.
example of like British disregard to kind of like working class towns,
Definitely,
and especially like Welsh stuff.
Yeah, I don't think we haven't done an episode on that, have we?
We have, I think. No, we haven't. We did an episode on Tryweryn.
Yeah, I don't think we've had the bollocks
sad.
to go for Aberfan yet, because it's just really sad, really bleak. In classic fashion, after the Aberfan disaster, the coal companies and the Charity Commission, they were blocking compensation claims from the families at the time.
Imagine how absolutely morally fucking bankrupt you have to
I know,
be
your fucking children
do
are
that.
dead, like, and you just, fucking hell. It's the fact that they could even just originally say no, without, I don't know. It's something I know me and you probably couldn't fathom, like the decision being made like that.
I'd kill them if someone killed my daughter or son. I'd kill them if they.
I know.
were trying
What
to
else
then
would you have
say
to
no.
lose in it? Do you know what I mean? You just go fucking nuts.
Yeah.
But anyway, so because of this, the Free Wales Army hosted a press conference in Merthyr Tydfil where they stated, so this is a quote, "If a sum of £5,000 was not paid within a week to each of the bereaved families of Aberfan, then the active service units of the Free Wales Army would take immediate action. The Merthyr Tydfil Town Hall, the committee rooms of the fund, plus the offices of the solicitor being paid to act as secretary and treasurer for the fund would all be blown up. If after this nothing was still done, then the county government offices would be blasted, and following that, the government offices in Cardiff would be destroyed."
Jesus.
Now, depending on what sources you look at, it varies on how much effect this declaration had on the decision making. But because of the bombing in Clywedog done by Mac a year earlier, there's loads of sources that say basically these threats were taken very seriously.
Yeah.
And in any case, what happened is the following Friday, £5,000 was paid to each of the affected families. John Jenkins, the leader I mentioned earlier, the leader of MAC, he said this was the FWA's finest achievement. But he also added that the group lacked the technical skills to make good on their threats, and that MAC would have had to have carried them out if the demands weren't met. So it was a bit of a backhanded compliment. But that is that's actually making a big bit of difference, and a good bit of difference. Fast forwarding then to January 1968, where the FWA had made comments in Town magazine, where Dennis Coslett threatened politicians and included images of the group running armed drills. An MP at the time called Emlyn Husson, he raised concerns about the group, but the Director of Public Prosecutions advised the government not take the Free Wales Army too seriously, and that going after them would only stoke the fire and give them publicity.
That's mad. You just have like a paramilitary group. You just,
just leave them to it. They're fine. Years later, though, the reason for this soft touch was actually explained when National Archive papers revealed that the Free Wales Army had a police informant close to them in the shape of a journalist called John Summers. Summers was involved with the FWA early doors and actually published loads of stories about them while he was affiliated with the group, usually publicising their cause and their capabilities as a paramilitary group. So this guy was like bigging them up in local papers and things like that while he was involved. But he was actually feeding information to the police at the time. So that's why they were like, it's fine, we'll leave them to it, because they had quite a in-depth knowledge of their like capabilities and what they could do. Despite the police knowing way more than they were letting on, the attitude shifted after it was announced in 1967 that Charles was to be invested as the Prince of Wales in 1969. After this announcement, MAC intensified its bombings campaign, and a special MI5 task force was set up to identify the bombers. This was known as the Shrewsbury Unit, and purposely didn't directly involve Welsh police forces, thinking they couldn't be trusted. There's a lot of sympathisers.
So what were the bombings? Were they collieries and?
I was going to cover that in the Mac when we do.
All right,
Basically,
cool. Yeah, let's do that. Let's
there
save
was
that for
threats
Mac.
and there was actual bombings.
Yeah.
So one such bombing. Actually, I've come ahead of myself there. Basically, in 1968, there was a bombing at RAF Pembrey that seriously injured an officer on the base, but both the FWA and MAC denied involvement. No one was ever identified as the perpetrator, but the political fallout from that meant that the police would have to come down really hard on these sorts of militant groups. So Julian Caio was carted off by police the morning, I think it was the morning after the bombings. It was a dawn raid. And he was questioned by the Shrewsbury unit days after the bombing, not the morning after. And apparently, during his interrogation, a deal was made. Julian would reveal where the FWA's weapon cache was in exchange for being cleared of all blame of the bombing. The police found the cache where Julian said it was in a lake near Tregaron, and after the fact, Julian only claimed he cooperated under threats of life in prison and losing his home and family. This was a claim that the police obviously later denied. Hard to know who was telling the truth here. Probably a bit of both, I imagine.
Yeah.
With all these developments, the government shifted its soft-touch approach, and on the 26th of February 1969, 9 members of the Free Wales Army were arrested, including Julian Caio, leader of the FWA, Dennis Coslett, deputy leader, Gethin ap Griffith, and David Burns. I did try and find the names of all of the people that were arrested, but I couldn't find anything reliable online that actually named the other members, annoyingly. But anyway,
so were they part of the burning of the second homes? Or is that more Mac?
No, that's maybe on Glendood, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a different thing.
Yeah.
We should do a thing on them though. They're an interesting.
Cool. Maybe we should do a little series, a little.
We could do actually like a freedom fighter terror. The old terrorist miniseries. So on the first day of the trial, the gallery began an impromptu recital of Hen Wlad van Hadai, and then the trial itself lasted 53 days in Swansea Crown Court.
Wow.
It actually ended on the same day that Charles was given the official title of Prince of Wales, where he was Crown Prince of Wales, which is a bit of like either meticulously planned to stick the boot in or just a horrible twist of fate. Ironically, the headlines that John Summers had written about the group that were often embellished were used as evidence against the prosecuted men to show like kind of how dangerous they were. But Summers himself was never actually called to testify directly. Of the 9 men arrested, 6 were convicted, but I could only find details for 2, basically, which was the lead and the deputy lead, which is Julian. He was convicted and sentenced to 50 months in prison. Dennis Coslett got the same, but he also refused to speak English during the trial.
Were they treated as political prisoners? Because I know that's different if you're a political player. I know that's a big thing for the IRA. They were
nothing that I found on there. No. I mean, all I found that this Dennis Coslett, he refused to speak English during the trial. But
if you're a political prisoner, I'd say if you kill someone as a political prisoner, you're not charged in the same way because it's like how you would be in war.
Yeah.
So you're not. You get to keep your own clothes. You get to have better rights and stuff because what you're doing is deemed like if a soldier shot another person, it's not murder,
it's wartime rules, isn't it?
Yeah.
Match day rules, as you say. Yeah. But yeah, both of them got done for public order offences. Like I said, they both got 15 months. And that was pretty much the end for the Free Wales Army then. Julian died suddenly at the age of 57 in 1995 at his home in Cillian from heart failure. Hundreds of people travelled to attend his funeral, including a number of plainclothed officers who had heard rumours that a firearm was going to be let off as a gun salute. Instead, they played an accordion to the tune of a song called Cuckoo Waltz, which is apparently Julian's favourite song. Might use that as the intro song and outro, maybe. In terms of their lasting legacy, in 2000, the Apollo Hotel on Cathedral Road was rebranded as the Caio Arms in the WFA Leader's Honour. There was some controversy at the time with an assembly member saying, quote, "The disruptive antics of Welsh nationalists should be consigned to the dustbin." He was a Tory, of course, like no fucking prizes for guessing which party he was affiliated with. The managing director of the brewery is unfazed, though, and described Julian Caio as a Robin Hood character of the late 1960s. I don't know if I quite agree with that, but fair enough, he was a fan. The Caio would eventually be rebranded again and is now the Pont Canna Inn, which we've drank in quite a fair few times.
So, yeah, and I had heard the Caio Arms.
I've actually been in when it was the Caio, but I never knew what its namesake was.
That's pretty cool.
But that's a cool little bit of local history for us as well.
Yeah.
Just over 10 years ago in the Western Mail, there was also a piece where they published information from the National Archives stating that Julian Caio had the mental age of 12 and that his second-in-command, Coslet, was, quote, unbalanced. These claims came under hot dispute at the time, with writer and artist Robert Ap Stefan, who was close to both men, stating, Caio was a highly intelligent man and Dennis was well loved in his hometown of Llanelli. It's ridiculous to call them undeveloped or unbalanced. They were both tough guys who did not suffer fools, but to call them that is over the top. I would expect a thing like that, ridiculing the enemy, but I had tremendous respect for both of them, and Caio was a fabulous individual, one of the last great characters of West Wales. And then this one, which was infinitely funnier, quote to include, I had to put it in. Another man close to Julian called Make Stevens, he said, I did not really know Coslet, but I met Caio several times and I don't remember him being retarded.
Is that as in Make Stevens the singer?
I have no idea. I didn't check that in,
singer.
but I just love that I don't remember him being retarded. So case closed, I guess.
That's Mick Stevens from Browd Houdini.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's got to be.
That actually makes sense. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, he's a bit of a. I think Mick Stevens is a bit of a bastard. I
Oh,
think
is he?
he's quite grouchy. I think he's a bit of a grouch ball, so that's why he probably would call someone.
Is he qualified to test someone's mental integrity? I don't know, but according to him, he couldn't have had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. Anyway,
Yeah.
the FWA were also humorously depicted in an episode of Archer in 2015. I think you spoke about this one on an episode before. Was there like a Welsh guy involved in the production or something? They mentioned Llywelyn in it or something.
Well, there's definitely a Welsh artist involved in Bob's Burgers, so I don't know if there's any crossover then who might have also worked on it. But yeah, there's that episode of they have like the Welsh, they like you just said then, but someone says, oh, are you English or something? And the person says, oh, you're tough for an English girl. And she's like, I'm not English, I'm Welsh. But I've never watched Archer.
Yeah, same here. But apparently one of the episodes, the WFA get like a depiction in it. But yeah, that's basically your lot on Julian Caio and the Free Wales Army.
That was really good, man.
I did try and look up like some good or funny headlines that were going on about them at the time, but they were all really standard. They were just like Welsh nationalists disrupt event or like Welsh
I don't think you find funny. I don't think funny really goes, oh, one of these jokers.
Supposed bomb was meant to go off.
I'm desperate for a piss. That's a really good episode. I really enjoyed that, man. If you got this far, please drop a review. 5 stars, Malarkey. Follow us on Instagram.
Head to Golden Lobes if you want to vote for us as well for the People's Choice. That'd be lovely.
Bye.
Cheers, my dears. Bye.